It's not every day that a normal working stiff like you gets to spend a day at the beach and call it work. But sometimes you're a cop and the beach has a body on it. Why would someone cut the tags out of all their clothes?
Holy smoke, I believe you've hit on something.
Why does he have multiple tickets with conflicting destinations, and who is he? Will the pathologist autopsy answer some of these questions or not? Or maybe raise even more. A suitcase at the train station has some clues and raises some new questions like, who the f*** is T. Keen? A coroner's inquest that plays out more like a conspiracy theory convention may be of some help. After all, a tiny scrap of paper leads to a woman, a book, and an identity. But is the identity his? This is a true crime story on YouTube, so you bet your ass there's a dead baby. This is a dramatization. No facts of evidence or theories have been changed, but the way those theories or evidence came to light may be modified or completely fabricated because drama! But who is the Somerton Beach Man? Here are some facts about 1948 Australia while I
Get out of my chair.
take my seat.
Drover plane tested by de Havilland, Australia at Bankstown Airport, and Glenn Wheatley is born on January 23. 16 RAF personnel dead after Avro Lincoln bomber crashes on RAF base Amberley February 19. Robert Cosgrove cleared of corruption, February 22, reinstated as Premier of Tasmania, February 25. Parliament of Tasmania has first female electorate on May 8. Referendum on rents and prices is not carried on May 29. Drugs get subsidised on July 1. Tasmanian Parliament hangs on election. Robert Cosgrove retains power thanks to William Webb on August 21. 13 dead in DC-3 crash near Nundle, New South Wales on September 2. UN General Assembly elects HV Evatt President on 21 September. Holden car model 48215, or the FX, sells for $755,536 in 2024, starting November 29. Our story starts and John Quigley is born on December 1.
Alright, I hope you're settled in.
Take your seats, please.
Let me read the story to you.
They were hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
Just a normal summer morning, Wednesday, December 1st, 1948, when you answer the phone at a police station in Australia. This is Detective Me. How can I help you? I'm calling from the crippled children's home on Somerton Beach. Oh my God, are the children okay? Yes, but that's more than I can say for the dead man on the beach. We're on our way. Now, I could spend a whole bunch of time explaining exactly where the beach is, and you could pretend to care, but as Churchill said, history is a lie agreed upon. So let's just tell everyone that happened and move on to the interesting bits, okay? You observe a deceased man in a fashionable gray and brown suit of American tailoring paired with a white shirt and red, white, and blue tie. His feet are attired, he has no hat, and that's weird in 1948. He is clean and clean-shaven, but has no wallet or identification of any kind on him. You discern no obvious immediate cause of death.
Has there been some trouble here?
As your team is working the scene, a couple, Mr. and Mrs. Rapp, which stands for Random Australian People, approaches you. Good morning, officer. We came to give you a statement. Thank you. Please go ahead. We noticed a man lying on the beach. He weakly extended his right arm towards us and then dropped it limply. In the dusk, we couldn't make out many details. We thought he had a rough night and just kept walking. Thank you. You return to your super interesting and totally never boring police work that is not depressing in any way, even when you have to look at a dead body on a beach all day. When another couple approaches you, this couple, who I can't think of a cool pseudonym for, informs you that they had eyes on the man for a full half hour from 7:30 to 8 p.m. They did not see him move, but had the impression that he had changed positions. They thought it was odd that he wasn't reacting to mosquitoes, but figured he was asleep or drunk and did not investigate. You turn to the items found on the man. The unlit cigarette just lying on his right jacket collar is a little odd. Not because it's a cigarette, it is 1948, remember. But a solitary, unlit cigarette just lying on the collar offers far more questions than answers.
Not much doubt about it.
No, not the slightest.
An unused second-class rail ticket from Adelaide, 7 miles northeast, to Henley Beach, 7 miles northwest. Here's a Google Maps screenshot showing the driving path from Adelaide to Somerton Park Beach to Henley Beach, even though you have no idea what a Google Map is because it's 1948. You know the train between Adelaide and Henley does stop here, even though it is ridiculously out of the way. Trains generally have to go where the tracks are, so this is what happens. But the ticket is unused, so how did he get here? That's when another item catches your eye. The used bus ticket from Adelaide to the local station. So now you know how he got here. But why?
Murder, murder, murder. That's all they think of.
He has a ticket to Rails End. But if Somerton Beach was his destination, why buy a ticket all the way to the end of the line? If Henley Beach was his destination, why not just get a bus there? As the 1,000 reasonable explanations for this conundrum vie for the coveted most reasonable position in the mush that was your brain at 6:29 this morning, one of your men approaches.
Sir, all the tags have been removed from his clothes.
Thanks, I think. Contemplating if anyone would care if you bummed a cigarette from a dead man, you grab the Army Club cigarette pack as well as the quarter-full box of Bryant and May matches. When you open the cigarette pack, it contains 7 Cancetas. The British matches and cigarette box with the Scottish cigarettes catches your attention. But since you don't think to write down the brand of the cigarette found on the coat collar, that must not have.
It can't be. It's an optical conclusion.
Tickets that don't make sense. Products from 2 foreign countries, no tags on the clothes. This is really not making any sense at all. At least the half pack of juicy fruit makes sense, but what about this narrow aluminum comb from the US? Identification, no wallet, no hat. Products from 3 foreign countries. No tags on the clothes that appear to be of American design. Who is this man? Why is he here? What happened to him? And why isn't he breathing? And does this have anything to do with the escalating global political Cold War that is just getting rolling right now? You're just going to have to order an autopsy and hope you can answer at least one of these questions. The pathologist is not very helpful. He does estimate the time of death at approximately 2 a.m. on the 1st of December. He also tells you that the man ate a pastry around 10 p.m. on November 30th.
Thanks, Inspector. I'll be right back.
This does not help at all. You have witnesses who place the man in roughly the position he is in now and not at that time in any condition to be walking around and eating stuff from 7 to 8 p.m. But then he ate a pastry 2 hours later, put the garbage from it somewhere, and then returned here to die 4 hours after that.
Because I had a little trouble with the clocks, you know, that summertime. I never know whether to take an hour off the end and put on the beginning or an hour off the beginning and put on the end, so I took an hour off both ends and got here yesterday.
It just does not make any sense. What is going on here? His heart is normal in every way, but there's congestion in small vessels in the brain, pharynx, duodenum, kidneys, liver, spleen, and brain. Yes, I said brain twice. You're a cop. You have no idea what any of that means, but You figure he'll explain it if it's important. Superficial mucosa of the gullet has whitening with an ulceration in the center, and then he says blah 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 for a really long time, while you think about how wonderful your weekend plans are going to be. I mean, he is a pathologist and you're a cop. You just want him to tell you what all this means. You might as well daydream about a better day at the beach than your last one.
Allow me to introduce myself and come quickly to the point.
He cannot find evidence of poisoning, but still suspects that as the cause of death. He tells you that he wishes it were 2024 because he's certain poison detection methods will improve over the next 70-odd years, but unfortunately it's 1948.
Thank you, sir.
The coroner tells you that he is certain the causes are not natural, but beyond that, all he has is suspicion. He suspects poisoning, but can offer no actual proof of it. The pathologist informs you that it was probably a barbiturate or a soluble hypnotic, and he also tells you that he suspects these later class of drugs will be called hallucinogens in 2024.
Thank you, sir.
With questions mounting and leads dwindling, you, detective defeated, go home for the day as the case starts to go cold. 44 days, or 6 weeks and 2 days, or 1,056 hours, 63,360 minutes after you took that first call. Today, it is January 14th, 1949, when a brown suitcase turns up at the Adelaide Railway Station.
Right through it.
It has been in the cloakroom at the station since a little after 11 a.m. on November 30th. It is brown and missing its label. The bag appears to mostly contain the standard items for a couple days away from home. The shanked-out table knife raises a few eyebrows, as do the scissors with sharpened points. Although those two items explain the square of zinc, a type of sheath. The third officer's stenciling brush seems a little out of place. Good thing your uncle was a merchant marine or you never would have recognized it. Almost all the tags are missing from the clothes, which isn't all that odd. People tend to write names on labels due to post-war rationing, so tags are often removed from second-hand purchases. You suspect that a tie, a t-shirt, and a laundry bag bearing some form of T-Keen are valuable clues, but no one has reported anyone matching that moniker missing in any English-speaking country.
You have my card. I shall expect to hear from you very soon.
The thread card for a type of thread not available in Australia has your spidey senses tingling. More evidence the man is a foreigner. Or has he just returned home from holiday? 3 dry cleaning marks are found. A nationwide search proves fruitless. You wish for a time when all the information at every police station in the world is accessible instantly. But it's 1948, and ARPA won't even start working on that for another 20 years. So to you, an Australian detective in 1948, the internet is just a pipe dream.
Thank you, sir.
It would not be reasonable to search farther than you already have. There are no extra socks, and while there are pencils and letter stationery, there is no correspondence in the suitcase. Questioning your decisions and contemplating your quickly approaching midlife crisis, you sit and watch this case slip through your fingers like half-melted jello. And you hope the coroner's inquest will help. When it is finally finished. "6 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. Or 28 weeks and 3 days. Or 4,776 hours. Finally, 286,560 minutes since you took that phone call."
I'd like to give him a broadcast. He should go right to the top.
Winter has settled over the Australian landscape and your case. But you're hoping the official closing of the coroner's inquest gives you some fresh leads to chase. The investigating pathologist, Tom Cleveland, notes that the man's shoes seem to be freshly polished. unlike someone who spent the day meandering about town in support of his dumped body theory. Your detective gears start turning. Dumped body? Nah, that's silly, no evidence in the loose sand. But this theory seems to actually be preliminary to something else. He's gotten your attention, that's for sure. But you have witnesses that saw the man the night before. Almost like he is reading your mind, Tom jumps into explaining the witnesses away. None of the witnesses could positively identify the man they saw the night before. It was dark. They were at a distance. The body of the next morning could simply be a different person than the one observed over 12 hours earlier. And all your wackadoodle bells toll immediately. If there is one thing a detective can do, it is spot BS.
A charming exhibition.
A lightly traveled area of the beach with a body in the same place and distinctive position and witnesses that are relatively confident it is the same man. This just crawls right under the pile of reasonable explanations you already have. Nah, the body wasn't dumped. You think it's Professor Hicks, who teaches physiology and pharmacology at the local U, takes the stand. He talks about digitalis and obane, two poisons from a class of drugs known to cause cardiac arrest in high doses. He explains that these drugs are easily obtainable from a chemist without needing to provide reasons. His explanation clarifies that these drugs are incredibly deadly in even minuscule amounts, though he does suspect they may find a way to make blood pressure control medicines out of at least one of them by 2024.
Thank you, sir.
The small dosage requirement makes them incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to detect 7 hours after being ingested. He explains that no evidence for vomiting at the scene is a reservation to this theory. While not completely unheard of, he refuses to state poisoning is certain without it. And you suddenly realize the reason for the spurious dumped body theory. He vomited elsewhere, right? You wish Tom hadn't done that. It makes this theory less believable by association.
Someone's done something despicable. Something I'll never forgive.
He notes the movement of 7 the previous night could have been his dying convulsion, which would also contradict Tom's time of death by several hours. At one point, Tom stated, "I would be prepared to find that he died from poison, that the poison was probably a glucoside, and that it was not accidentally administered. But I cannot say whether it was administered by the deceased himself or by some other person." But ultimately, the inquiry ends with no identification and no determination of the cause of death. Shaking your head as you exit the courtroom, some reporter hears you mumble, "It is an unparalleled mystery." You find a payphone, because it's 1948 and the Get Smart shoe phone hasn't been invented yet, let alone the pocket phones everyone is sure to have in 2024. And you use the payphone to call into headquarters. They tell you they found something. Looking back now from the vantage point of the distant future, with 1948 and even the Cold War seeming nothing but a dream state shared among the collective unconscious of the elderly and aging, you do not honestly remember if the inquest or the book happened first. Sometimes distances on the timelines of our lives become blurred beyond recognition, but when you tell the story, the book happens second. A hidden key pocket is found inside the man's trousers. It's been hidden as a seam repair and went unnoticed for a long time. Inside the pocket is a piece of paper with the foreign phrase, Tamam Shud, printed in a distinctive font. Public library officials quickly come to the rescue and inform you that the phrase translates to ended or finished.
Speak no evil, eh?
And this particular scrap has been removed from the last page of Rubaiyat of Ome Khayyam, an ancient collection of quatrains by the poet. Due to public outcry, a nationwide search for a copy of the book missing the piece of paper you have is conducted. A man that you give the pseudonym of Ronald Francis. Did you have burgers and scotch for lunch that day? You can't remember. Anyway, Ronald Francis shows you a recent edition of the book. It is missing the quintessential piece. He tells you he found the book shortly after the murder, but never considered that they might be related until he saw the newspaper article about the fragment the day before.
Of course you didn't. You couldn't have.
From the theme of the book, live life to the fullest and die without regrets, you summarize that this is the world's shortest suicide note. With nothing but your gut to go on, you keep working the case. The back of the book contains impressions from someone using it as a writing surface, 5 lines of text in all capital letters that appear to be a code of some type. You get the code breakers to work on cracking it, but you've never seen anything like this before. You're pretty sure they won't be able to decode it in 1978 for a television special or in 2004. You think that probably around 2014 they'll figure out that it is some type of anagram. So your best guess right now is that in 66 years, cryptographers will turn this from an indecipherable cryptogram to an indecipherable anagram.
Thank you, sir.
But there's something else in the book, too. There was also a phone number contained in the etchings in the book. It was not 867-5309, but it would be funny as hell if it were, because it belonged to a woman named Jessie. And you have no idea why that is funny, since it's 1948.
Thank you, sir.
But anyway, a phone number belonging to a person. So, you ring the lady up who lives close by where the body was found and have a sit down. She denies all knowledge of the man, how and why he was in town, how he got her phone number, and you'd think you remember her throwing out a couple denials of being a person or sitting in the police station or knowing how to speak as well. But since you didn't write those down and this is 1948, you can't be certain on those last couple.
You know a lot of things, don't you? You might even know something that you haven't told us.
She tells you the touching story of when she was a nurse at Royal North Shore Hospital during the war.
Holy smoke! I believe you hit on something.
She owned a copy of Rubaiyat and gave it to Lieutenant Alf Boxall of the Australian Army.
A charming exhibition.
He reached out to her once, but she told him she was married.
Can't expect a girl to have all the virtues.
You look him up. He's alive and his copy of Rubaiyat's intact. Jessie does agree to look at the bust of the dead man on the beach.
Have you an appointment?
Upon seeing it, she is completely taken aback, almost ready to faint. She immediately looks away and refuses to look back.
Thanks, Inspector. I'll be right back.
Looking back on it, now you realize you probably should have had a Snickers first because your detective gears were in reverse here, or you would have immediately started an interrogation.
Not much doubt about it.
No, not the slightest.
Instead, she swears she has no idea who it is and you accept it like a schoolboy with a crush. She requests you keep her name and details out of it for reputational reasons, which you do, even though it significantly hampers further investigation.
I was just unlucky. It might have happened to anyone.
You are pretty sure that Jessie will go to the grave with any secrets she has here in 1948.
You can just picture the scene in 2007 at her funeral when you shed a tear. Not for Jessie, but for the unidentified man you know she knew something about.
I wonder if maybe her family will decide to release her name to the public in 2010. Or at least that some author will claim they did. But for now, Jessie is a dead end. There is this interesting connection that some are making, though. Also around the same time as the last 3 chapters, the case of the Mangnonson Mangnonson family happens. I'm calling them Smith. Someone strolling along the sand hills of Largs Bay discovers a sack containing the lifeless body of 2-year-old Clive and his unconscious father, Keith. Keith is very weak, suffering from exposure. He is given medical attention and then psychiatric care. The police believe Clive has been dead for 24 hours when he was found. Clive's cause of death is not immediately discernible, but it is not thought to be natural. Roma, Clive's mommy dearest, reports a masked man driving a cream jalopy who says,
Keep away from the police, or else.
The threat was made more ominous by a man of the same description lurking about the family's house previously. You're intrigued by the case because you remember Keith. Sat down with him recently, this case with the unidentified man. Keith told you he believed it was Carl Thompson. Keith had worked with him in Renmark in 1939. You turn back to the telephone as the investigator on Roman's case is telling you that she collapsed and required medical attention at the end of the interview. The headline on your desk reveals that a secretary for the local Progress Association and the acting mayor have received threatening phone calls about staying out of the Smith affair. You have several other theories as well. When you have a body without identification and it is 1948, you would be stupid not to think up a spy story. You did find the body in the same area as at least 2 targets of international espionage. The federal intelligence agencies are reorganizing, causing enforcement issues. And the Soviets have been active in the country lately. Alf, from earlier, is believed to work in intelligence, but Boxall has never confirmed or denied anything about the case publicly. So, with no hard evidence, the spy theory is just another theory. Remember Jessie? Her daughter's going to grow up and Jessie will pass. Maybe when that happens, Kate, the daughter, will talk. Maybe she will say that her mother admitted knowing the dead man's identity to the family and that he was
known to a higher level than the police.
Implying that Jessie and the man were both spies. After all, her mother teaches English to immigrants. She has communist leanings and speaks Russian. But nobody knows where she learned it or why. You're willing to bet this is family history drama and nothing more. If the two knew each other, it was probably in a more biblical way. You wonder if one of the grandkids might come out with something like that. No, you're pretty sure you know who he is, but science is half a century or more away from being helpful and backing you up, so you suffer with your certainty in silence. Until now. Your aunt's friend from Hamburg, Richard Webb, has a son you never met, Carl. While you've never met the man and therefore can't identify him, you do know a lot about him. When the family bakery closed down, Carl retrained as an electrical instrument maker, explaining the customized knife and scissors. You've heard reports of his wife saying that he is a fan of poetry and even wrote his own.
Buck, 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 buck.
Most of them on the subject of death, which he claims to be his greatest desire. This would be in keeping with the Rubaiyat, which is a poem about death and dying. Your aunt told you Carl attempted suicide back in '46, but his wife, Dorothy, nursed him back to health. He was angry and more abusive, causing Dorothy to leave. Carl has a brother-in-law named Thomas Gerald Keene, or T. Keene, explaining those weird tags. Carl's brother-in-law spent time in the States explaining the American appearance of his clothes as well. On top of all that, Carl likes to bet on the horses. Those weird-ass ciphers could be horse names. Gamblers gotta protect their special secrets, we all know that.
The fewer people to share that £60,000, the better.
He even talked to his ex-wife about it once. She believes Carl suffered from serious mental illness and just eventually poisoned himself.
I know myself too well to admit that it's over. I know myself too well to call it a day.
And you wouldn't be surprised if science catches up to your gut and proves this in 2022 either.
Thank you, sir.
Ultimately, like I said at the beginning, this is an unsolved case. It is an ongoing mystery. There is a lot of promise in Carl Webb, but that is a 2022 theory. So, why did I tell you a story that asks more questions than it answers? Well, there's a couple reasons. Hopefully you've enjoyed this part of your day, and I'm glad to have played a part in that. Hopefully you know something you didn't before, and I am glad to have played a part in that. But there's more. There's so much more. Sometimes in life, the journey is the destination. And sometimes in life, things don't come neatly packed in a box with a cute little bow on top. And sometimes in life, there is no closure.
Finally, sometimes in life, if you know someone suffering from untreated mental illness, they kill themselves on a beach in Australia.
Don't let your loved one be a Carl. Normally I end these on an upbeat note, but today, that doesn't seem appropriate. Like, share, subscribe, comment, or don't. At the end of the day, if people are killing themselves because they don't think they can talk to you, it doesn't fucking matter what else you do.
A free bird jumps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the currents end and dips its wings in the bright sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams, often shouting a nightmare scream. Its wings are clipped, its feet are tied, so it opens its mouth to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still. And its song is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. A free bird thinks of another breeze and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees and fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and it names the sky its own.